So in this particular video, you're going to see the technician prepare the calibration samples that are used in table 4.1 on page 7. So you might want to follow along there. And let's pay attention to the technique. So the first thing the technician's going to do is try and prepare the volumetric pipette. He's going to rinse it out with a little bit of the mother solution. So draws up just a little bit, turns it sideways, draws it up into the chamber, the cylinder a little bit. Then you can see that whole band moving across there. So now you want to just dump that back into waste, not back into sample. Okay, over to waste. Good job. All right. So now in the next step, what the technician would want to do is rinse out the volumetric flask. And they're going to make a mistake here and see if you can identify the mistake. So they're wanting to rinse out the flask, and it's a flask in which you dilute, and they prepped it by putting a little of the mother solution and twirling it around and then dumping it into the waste container, and that was a mistake. What is the mistake they made? Okay, we'll fast forward past this and move to the next step. Okay, in this step, he's going to do a dilution. Now it seems like they're prepping the volumetric flask the proper way, giving it a rinse with the DI water, which is what we're going to dilute with. Dumping that little rinse into the waste container. Now we're ready to prep sample number 2, 5 mils, diluted up to the 10 mil mark with water. So this pipette's already been rinsed. Okay, so he's drawing it from that first flask he made, but you could just draw it from the mother solution. Not wasting samples, so that's good. But anyway, that is not necessarily the technique. You could just drop from the mother solution directly. But either way, this is fine. So it's going to dispense. And remember, you don't dispense all the way out. You go from mark to mark. So he's going to dispense down to the 5 mil mark. Oh, okay. Maybe working on the lower volume ones. So that might have been a 1 mil. Followed by a 5 mil, what I'm guessing, which is a good use of solution. Okay, dump the waste in there. Okay, now he's going to just go ahead and make the cuvette with the concentrated in it. And again, this is great. Going to do a little rinse with what's about to go in there. Good. So there's going to be a cuvette that holds the concentrated. You don't have to draw it with the volumetric. You could just use those little throwaway dispensers, but this is fine. You've got it. It's already been used to draw mother solution anyway, so that would be appropriate. And he's very carefully measuring the amount to put in there, but you can just get it roughly across that halfway mark where the volumetric glass is present, and that's all you need. So that's one cuvette down. That's mother solution in that cuvette. Now we're going to dilute to the mark with water. So it's going to go to the 10 ml mark. There you go. And this one's going to go to the 10 ml mark. So you can get it really close with the squirt bottle, but when you get it right to the mark, what you want to do is get those little droppers so you can precisely add the last amount of water. Okay, that's right. That throwaway dispenser, that'll just add that drops of water very carefully. It's a good way to go. So he's done that, got it right to the mark. Now you can, he's using his gloves as a, but we also have parafilm to wrap over there. That way you don't do a little cross-contamination with your gloves. That can be a problem. So I tend to put parafilm over that. Would be a little better technique. But now we have sample number 2, which is the next dark sample. And then you have sample number 3, which is the 1 to 10 sample. What are we doing here? We're going to take the I think what he's doing is prepping that so he can dispense it into the cuvette, which he is. And that, for cost efficiency, we don't need to use that volumetric. Just use those little throwaway pipettes. You can just reach in there, give them a quick rinse, and then fill that cuvette, and it just needs to be above the shoulder. This is not a precise depth measurement. Just get a past the optical glass. If you go over, it won't change anything. You just can't go under, but you can go over, just fill past the glass. There you go. That's plenty. You can see how it expands out. That means he's past the optical glass. All right. So now that's the sample number 2. So now we're going to put that cuvette in line so we know what's what. You can even mark on the top of those if you need to. Now we're getting our 3rd cuvette. And again, throwaway pipettes would be better here because instead we're burning up these volumetrics. No need for that. But this is still very good technique for the very first time ever attempted. I'm pretty impressed here. So we're going to put a little bit in there. You just went right to the mark. Okay, decided maybe I better rinse that pipette out. While I'm at it, might as well rinse that out too. Okay, good. So we got the rinse in. That's very good. So now we'll put sample in there. This is sample number 3, 1 ml diluted to the mark, the 10 ml mark with water. Good stuff. like that. So he's getting his eyes parallel with the sight line. That way you don't get what's called parallax. If you try and view that line from up above it, you'll have a wrong measurement in the height. So that's more good technique. So here you go. Now we're ready to work on the dilution of the dilution. This is number 4 and number 5. So that's great. So we isolated out sample 3 by itself. It has plenty left in it. So from there, it's going to make either sample 4, let's see how much volume, or 5, we'll see. All right. But prior to doing that, he's going to go ahead and rinse out those 2 volumetrics. That's good. That's proper technique. Actually, that's not proper technique, because again, it's a dilution going on in there. So if I'm about to dilute in it, I rinse it with water, because that's what I'm going to add to it anyway. When you do it that way, you're adding a little bit of the sample, and so it's those drops that are left in there, they're going to change the volume that's being added right now. So this is a good chance to learn, and I'm not slighting the technician for doing this, because again, first time at it. But the proper rinse when you're diluting is you rinse with the solvent. The proper rinse if you're adding to the mark is you rinse with the mother solution, or the solution you're adding. So slight little mistake there, but this will work. Now we're going to measure out samples 4 and 5. Plus it'll be interesting to look at the calibration curve. So this it may or may not affect R squared. Usually these kind of errors start to show up in the R squared. You start to lose 9s, as we say. But we'll find out. Still may be suitable for our purposes. So now we're back. What we're going to do again is make the dilution of the dilutions. Prepping the delivery vessel, the volumetric pipette. This is sample number 3 that we're prepping it with. Now we're going to take either the, let's see how much he draws up there. That's good. Looks like it might be might do them both. Okay, at one shot. Draws a lot up there. It's very doable. Okay. Looks like he's putting maybe 5 in that one. Jump over here, and hopefully that'll be about 1, I'm guessing. It's hard to tell. Maybe that was 1 in the first one and 5 in the second one. All right, so now that should be enough of the number 3 solution in each. Now we need to dilute it to the mark with water. Again, you dilute it to the 10 mil mark. These volumetric flasks are marked 10.00 or 10 mils with a plus or minus of 0.04. So that should guide you on what to write into the volume. You do the calculation, and the last drops are just water added out of the little disposable pipette. And then again, what you should do at this point is either put official glass stoppers into those volumetric flasks or cover them with parafilm. This technician's using his gloves. The only problem with that is if he's used that finger before, then we're a little susceptible to doing a little bit of contamination. And again, that's going to start to wreck your calibration curve a little. So now we have the solutions. We're going to put them in the proper cuvettes. Again, for that, it's really great to have those throwaway pipettes, because you just pull up a little bit, rinse, and then use them, and away you go. No need to use those volumetrics. All right. So anyway, he's going to load those 2 cuvettes up with sample. Again, you want to rinse out the cuvette before you fill it with the solution. He's rinsing the cuvette and the volumetric pipette. It's good, all in one step. That's kind of a cool technique the way he does that. And now we can actually load the sample. And again, the volume added does not matter. You just got to get past where the window is and fill these 2 flasks. So in summary, you need to properly rinse if it's the glassware that's delivering the solution, like the volumetric pipette, then you rinse with the solution you're delivering. If it's a piece of glassware that's in which you're diluting, like the volumetric flasks, then you rinse with the solvent you're going to dilute with. The little ball pipettes are used to add drops to the mark when you're trying to get right to the 10 mil mark on those volumetric flasks. It's also great for just rinsing and filling the cuvettes because there's not a set mark you have to go to. You just have to get past the optical glass. So that's a good use of those. And finally, you're ready. You have all your cuvettes lined up. The only other cuvettes you need to prepare are one that has a blank in it, which means that you've rinsed it, again with the bulb. You rinse it with DI water, and then you fill it past the optical glass with DI water, and then we're going to have a blank, and then the 5 samples prescribed in Table 4.1. All right, you're ready to move on to the next video.